Hi, Pets Cop 2. Hi, sequel to Pets Cop. Hi, people. So relaxed. We're gonna do a very relaxed Saturday draw whatever stream. Some soothing lo-fi beats while we paint demons. I'm going to try to focus a little bit more on drawing for this one. So get your stuff. Open up a clean sheet of Photoshop. Start drawing whatever you want. Don't you dare draw what anybody else wants. And draw along with me. Hi, Harmless. Hello. Got a nice big cup of evening tea coming in any second now. I also think it's nice. The Nasipalos. You've got to take your time every now and then to draw some grotesqueries. If it was good enough for Da Vinci, it was good enough for me. Oh, hello, you little pup. Who's my good little dog? You're a good girl, yes you are. You're a good little dog. Right, go on, get. Thank you, Dimitri Young. Thank you. I'm happy to have you as a fan. I appreciate the kind words. Sending you many soothing art wishes. That title's the real deal. That's just how I think and feel. It's the vibe check right there. The music's not too loud, is it? I decided to not subject you all to the sound of Saturday evening New York City traffic tonight. That first head is nicely rendered. Thank you. I had fun doing that one. I'll paint another one of these. I'm just gonna sketch a few and see which one I want to paint. Slightly louder. If it's a problem for anyone, you can just let me know. Hey Steven, was curious what your thoughts on likeness studies as a beginner artist. It's super hard to nail it, especially in 3D. You know, Sargent used to say that you should paint models and not your friends so that you weren't so concerned with getting the likeness. And I think that there's some great wisdom in that. I think that for a lot of artists, the first thing you need to do is just learn how to draw the head and how to structure the head and how to paint the head. And then you add the likeness on top of that, you know? I think that for a lot of beginner artists, the likeness is very confusing because they think the likeness is hidden somewhere in the person's hair or their eyebrows or the shape of the tip of their nose or something like that. And that's part of the likeness, of course, but a lot of the likeness is actually in the forms in between the features and the general primary shape of the head. Like, if you had a friend whose head was shaped like this, thank you, and another friend whose head was shaped like this, and you had another friend whose head was shaped like this, and I'm sure we all have friends whose heads fit into these categories, you would never confuse them for each other from all the way down the block. Just, there's no way you'd ever mix them up, all right? So if their general shape is different enough, is unique enough, and is captured uniquely enough, the likeness begins there. I think that that's what trips up most beginner artists. You like the thumbnail art? Well, thank you. Well, I'm very glad to hear that. That drawing's a couple years old now. Hero of Ages. That's the great thing about spending forever on a drawing. You can take it out and show it to people when you need something to show. Play the hits. Oh, that's good tea right there. Any tips on rendering plants, trees, etc.? I'm trying to get into landscape. It's really tough. Always have a good reference and try to go visit the type of thing that you're trying to paint if you get a chance. There's such a big aspect of it is the form and the overlap and the depth of things in the landscape, like groups of leaves being in front of each other or behind each other and things like that. The way that a tree doesn't just twist left and right flat on your field of vision, but that it also twists away from you and towards you. That stuff is really, really important. I'll try to go see that stuff in person and walk around it. It also depends how you're rendering. Like if you're going for a more impressionistic rendering, it's more about the overall flicker of the value shapes and the color variation. And if you're trying to do a more form-focused rendering, you really just gotta buckle down and become one with the bark, man. You just gotta make it happen. Yep. Totally know what that is. Sure. Whatever you say. Whatever you say. Let's see here. Hello, Sindir. Hello. I have a question if I should start learning how to paint. I haven't even drawn something with value that wasn't a basic form or a meat spear, but I plan to become an illustrative painter in the long run. Yeah, if you want to be an illustrative painter, you should start painting pretty early. You're not going to do well, and just accept that. That's perfectly fine, you know? You just need to start getting the mileage and the familiarity with however it is that you're going to paint, so that you can just start building up that rapport. The audio from your end is a bit sizzly. Seems like a bad contact with the mic. That's probably... I have pretty heavy noise reduction on right now. And my audio environment sucks. Let's see if I switch it to the less good one. That actually makes it better. Any better? Not sound less sizzling? I'm not some streamer. I'm not good at doing this streaming stuff, so it's just gonna be testing things out. Yeah, I tend to advise people to, whatever you think it is you want to do, just do it. You need to start yesterday, not in 5 years. Whatever you think you're not allowed to try until you've practiced for 5 years, start tomorrow. Have a big dinner tonight and start tomorrow. Screw it. Especially for painting, for something like being an illustrative painter, you need so much mileage. You need to know everything that your medium is going to do so well that you really can't afford to sit around waiting. I want him like really red or only kind of red? I think just kind of red. I got bored of drawing, so I'm gonna paint up one of these silly ones now. putting in local color, red, then breaking it up with a little color variation on a splatter brush. And now I'm doing some local color changes, so I'm letting it get redder and darker in ruddy areas like cheeks, around the eyes. Oh my god, this song is so ridiculously smooth for the stupid thing that I'm drawing right now. I find myself like talking to the tone of this really smooth song. Oh yes, now we're putting a nice dark red 5 o'clock shadow. Goofy. Join me as we venture into sensual land. I'm gonna clip the lines to the overall shape so I don't get any lines going totally errant all outside of it. I'll clean them up later. I'm lazy, whatever. Let's see if I can add some other color besides this red, like a paler orange spot here or there. Doing that on the completely wrong layer. Lightening it up slightly. Let's put a little bit more red on the nose. And let's give him some purplish lips, maybe. Yeah. Whatever, man. Give him a green eye because I'm a hack. Take the low-hanging fruit every time. How tall is this? Oh, it doesn't matter. Yeah, I'll lower the opacity on the lines like a lot. The lines are very simple, cartoonishly simple. I don't want to break them up with indications of forms that would be better done soft, but they're only going to get more broken up after this. I'll even go in here and erase some stuff that's just going to give me problems later, like this indication of the bridge of the nose. Let's just get rid of that. It's like, in reality, that's just a very soft roll, so I'll just sculpt it in paint. Let me soften down on these brow wrinkles. All that. All this stuff is just going to bug the contrast hierarchy in the form painting part. And you don't want that to happen because painting silly demons is super serious. And if you do a bad job, everyone's going to know you're a bad artist. It's going to be on the record on the internet forever. So you better take it super serious. Everybody cares. A lot of people care. So might as well add some indication of like a brow color on here. Trying to keep the values very close. Don't want a lot of change on those values. And I think it usually works when you darken down, even if they're not going to have any hair, if you kind of darken down the scalp a bit, helps. It's a little too dark. Hi, Carlos. So... see, just look at it and ask, is it silly? Yes. Yes, it is. Just the lines, I'm just gonna duplicate them so I have them for later, in case I need them. And we'll just put all of this in a group. The red guy, very original. The Oscar for best Oscar-winning visual design goes to, I can't believe this, Steven Zapata! Incredible. That's right, the Oscar goes to Steven for red guy. Those are my lines, there's nothing on here. So I'm just gonna take it, make this a multiply layer. Let's pick shadows we want to do. Yeah. So it's either gonna be, so I always put some part of the face into shadow, so it's either gonna be like, it's either going to be a shape that's overall like this. It's either going to be that, with the light coming from the left, or gonna be one of these. It's gonna be one of those. Yeah, I like that one better. That's fine. That means we're gonna have to do a lot of wide open work in the light, but why did our merciful God put us on this earth not to do a lot of wide open, low contrast work in the light, right? Let me do this for real. Yeah, that makes sense. Erase all of this. Love from Ireland, hi from Iran. Aw, thank you. Much love and hellos from New York. that one. Let me... Just gonna soften all of those speckles a bit. Blur, motion blur. Did it break up the eye too bad? No, it's fine. It's just seeing if there's a direction I like better. That's fine. I feel like it's good to have it a little softer, and it makes it look slightly more like skin. It sort of replicates the Langer lines just a little bit. Directionality of Langer lines. Well, let's the lines come back a little bit contrasty. I'm just doing what I did before when I tested it, but now I'm just doing it good. Every step, good the whole time. I'm just doing it with the airbrush, with size set to my pen pressure, and nothing else. There's no opacity, there's no flow on it, it's just completely solid. Just like my mood. Absolutely steady. Just like my temperament. I want to put a shadow there, but it's going to mess with the local color read. With that lip change, so that's going to be a problem worth quitting over. I don't mean this picture, I mean all of art. Definitely going to wind up quitting art over not being able to make the local color change on that lip read. Hey Steven, what advice would you have for someone that doesn't know what to do in life? Therapy, probably. Also, don't worry about it. You know, I feel like very few people get out of life without having gone through some intense things. If you just wait long enough, something's gonna happen to you. It might be good, it might be bad. Something's gonna happen to you that gives you a feeling like you know what you want to do. And you know what? Don't think that... I don't know, the idea of like knowing what you want to do with your life, I think our conception of that is changing, you know? I think it's perfectly valid for your answer to that to not have anything to do with work or a vocation or anything like that. I think it's a big enough challenge to say, all right, what do I want to do in life? I want to be in control of my mentality as often as I can, or feel peaceful as often as I can, or not live in delusion as often as I can. Like, those are tough enough that I think they're perfectly valid goals to pick for life. I mean, monks exist, you know? Their whole goal in life is to be mindful for as many seconds of their existence as they can. That's a thing. And it really is just okay to not know. That's just perfectly fine, you know? Not everybody in the world needs to have an answer to, all right, well, what are you going to do with your life and all that? Who says? Who says you need to have an answer for that? You don't have to. If you want one, you can hunt for one, do whatever it takes. But every time I find myself in this situation, this is a tricky one. It's like all of this is so wide open, right? Here on the cheek. So I can either go the brave route, the Bouguereau route, Sargent route, and leave that wide open and modulate it very carefully with subtle changes. Or I can be a total hack and put that shadow right there. And man, I really want to put that floating island of shadow right there. But you know what? I can always add it later, and I've been burned enough times. Couple of these. You know what? I can just do these in paint later. Those don't need to be true shadows. Those are tiny, tiny bumps on the form that barely move. And they don't need to have. Now here near the eyes, put all sorts of crap. Put whatever I want, really. Nice contrasty juice here around these eyes. Drag some of this in here. What are you looking for, D? Black ink? Check the fourth drawer down. Okay, so now what I do? Now I'm gonna pick some choice areas here and get a variety of gradations. Now just let me explain myself here for a second. Don't yell at me. Let me talk for a second. What do I mean by that? you see, yeah, there's some differences in these edges, right? Some differences. Some are a little sharper than others, some are a little harder than others, but they're barely different, right? If I take a red pen here and like put some little hatch lines around the transitions, it's like they barely roll any different. And that's not what happens on organic forms. The way that the shadows roll off into the main light varies a lot. I would hope and I would expect to see that there would be areas where it's short, like that, and then there's other areas where it's really long, like this. Maybe there'd be another one here. Maybe this would be a really long roll. So now that I've laid these shadows in crisp and they give me the overall design of the shadows, I'm gonna take a much more pressure sensitive airbrush and I'm going to edit these curves. I'm going to edit these gradients and how they roll off. And I'll just do that with the airbrush, and I'll also erase into it with the airbrush. Am I looking? Is there any right answer here? No. This is a stupid ghoul. This is some goblin, devilman creature. You don't gotta worry about right answers. You just make it different, right? I just said the principle. It doesn't matter that you do that perfectly right, or you hunt for all the form knowledge in my mind. If I only understood forms as perfectly as anybody else, as Jerome, then it would be good. No, you just do it. You say, all right, they'd be different. Just make it up. Just make them different. And that's that. And listen to calm music and drink tea. And think about how society expects us to define ourselves by our jobs, and that's your day. Sometimes I'll squish the brush like this. Use that to get a nice soft roll. Nothing crazy. It makes a small but important difference. It's like I know the gradient out of the bridge of the nose should be sharper than the gradient on the ball of the nose, right? Because we all instinctually know that the bridge is sharper, has a tighter roll than the round little ball of our nose, so let's just work for it. Let's put in the work. Let's put in the incredibly difficult work. Tapping the painting like this a little bit. I'm gonna pull back and ask myself, is it silly? And it is silly. Doing all right. Put a little variation on this edge to indicate the lip splitting for the philtrum. The devil is in the details, as they say. It's not actually super complicated or elaborate to do that. It's just a very simple precision move. That's what it's about. Precision. It's not about painstaking and importance. It's got too dark, so I'm just gonna poke that with the eraser. And some weird shapes here, but whatever, I'm committed. I would normally redraw these, but I'm trying to just have fun and screw around. Just put a freaking foreshadow on that. That's funny, that looks like the classic when a man is going bald and he has those shapes on the side of his head. And now transparency lock the multiply layer. And I'm just gonna vary its value. So I'm doing it with a green so that it neutrals out a little bit and gives me a temperature variation off of the red. But I'm gonna raise the green with the gradient tool. I'm just gonna make it a little lighter at the bottom. And be a little darker from the top. Because generally shadows gradate as they move towards the floor because there's more bounce light coming in, and that's a perfectly fine thing to imply in our gray void. Whatever. All right. And now I'm gonna bake the multiply into a normal. Now it's not a multiply layer anymore, now it's a normal layer, and I'm going to merge the lines into it so that I can destroy them now. Oh, you know what I wanted to do before that? Just gonna quickly put some darkness in the nostrils here. Give these a little structure before I move on. What did I imply here? Let's go whoop wah. Nope, let's go whoop wah. Oh, yeah. Classic nose shape. Classic nose shape. And I mean, while we're at it, let's not be lazy. Let's just light shelving underneath the upper lip. Oops, ruined everything. Oh yeah, it goes a long way, people. Goes a long, long way. As Ray Bustos would say, isn't that amazing? How do you like them apples? So, as I was doing before, I'm just gonna bake that to normal, and then I'm gonna merge the lines into it, because screw them, they're in my way. And I'm gonna sip a little tea real quick. What's up? Hi, Truman. Oh, Sean Fitzpatrick. How are you, sir? Hope you're doing well. Pat Scott says apples, wonder. Colonel Frogs says, just found this channel this week and probably the only artist I enjoy drawing while listening to. Well, that's very kind, but there's a lot of good artists to listen to. All right. All right, so actually before I go on to my next step, there's something I always think about with a face, which is that I need to do something about both the vertical and horizontal rhythms of the light. So this whole shadow shape that I drew here, right? That one, I consider that a vertical rhythm of the face, right? So if I got a face right here, you know, it's nice, real nice. If the light is coming from the right or the left, I have to respect this vertical ribbon of shadow that forms on the face, right? Maybe it's like that. Or maybe it's like this. But either way, those are the dominant ones on a face in a lot of lighting situations. And I consider those vertical rhythms or vertical ribbons because they're more vertical. But there's going to be subordinate horizontal ribbons of shadow as well. Here, where the brow goes under. I think of another one here at the bottom of the cheeks, then into the bottom of the nose, and then across to the other bottom of the cheek. And then, well, depending on age, there can be another one here, but there's another one down here. So I like to think of these horizontal ribbons as well. And I didn't really do anything for the horizontal ribbons, so I'm just going to do another multiply layer and imply them ever so slightly. That helps create like a matrix of shadows across the face. That makes it feel a little bit more realistic. Of course, one is going to be dominant and the other one is going to be subordinated. So one is going to be stronger than the other. In this situation, the one that I already put in, that's the dominant one. These next rhythms are going to be much less dark. So I'm just gently tapping in the brow area. I'm gonna follow the rhythm off of this big shadow. I'm gonna do it much lighter, but I'll do it dark for a second so you can see. I'm gonna go this way. That'll be horizontal rhythm. I'll follow that through. Following around. It's already kind of there on the other side because it's part of the vertical ribbon. Follow the flow out of the mouth and jowls over here. And then this shape out from under the mouth barrel. Get a nice shadow ribbon there. Ever so subtle, but goes a long way to adding dimensionality. And it's okay that it's dark now because as the painting progresses, going to use color dodge and stuff like that. These very, 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 very hot adjustment layers that bleach out immediately. So they will, it's okay that we're going to have a dark base because they will balance that out. Well, it's not okay in the sense that the painting's gonna come out great. That's just, I can't do anything about that. It's just not, you know? No painting of mine ever has. It's just not gonna happen. I mean, it's gonna be okay because I'm not gonna be reduced to tears. And really, isn't that the most we can ask for? All right. So we got our ribbons. I'm gonna drop their opacity, like, so that's them off. Let's put them up at like 52. It is slow, painstaking work painting goblins, I'll tell you what. All right, I'll bake that. And we don't go. Well, I'll keep my silhouette in case I need it. Yeah, I'll keep that. Bake that to that. That's all on normals. All right. All right, so since I have this all merged together, I can destroy the lines now by just rubbing them with a mixer brush, blender brush, doesn't matter, just anything to lose the high contrast edges. I finished my tea. Wish I had more. This is one of the reasons that I did the drawing very fast and it's not detailed, because I'm gonna destroy the lines anyway. Makes this step much less heart-wrenching. Also makes me willing to do it. That's important too. If I had spent too long on the lines, I would probably get very precious about them, seeing as how I wouldn't want to waste the work. Want to do this, and then I would just leave. I'd go eat dinner with my wife or something like that, and that would be a national tragedy, so we'll avoid that at all costs. I'm just hunting for anywhere where the lines are, and I'm just beating them up. This is actually, for the way that I work, this is an important step because this regains the edge hierarchy for me, and the edge hierarchy is very important. There's too many hard edges all around right now. Makes it impossible to work. Makes the viewer's eye get distracted. I'm going back to all blurry edges so that I can recontrol everything. That is one thing I struggle with, erasing something that I know is making the drawing worse, but I dread to do it because I spent so long drawing the darn thing. Oh yeah, you gotta get rid of it. You just gotta look for that feeling and then fight it. Just erase it. It's totally natural. Goodbye, Michelle Hoff. Go now to your rest. Oops. Yeah, it's hard managing your energy as an artist, you know? It's a really, like, paradoxical feeling to know the thing that you're looking at is like, oh, yeah, that's what's keeping me from liking this, but I'm not gonna fix it. Absolutely universal. We all do it, even though we know that's the first thing we should be fixing or redoing or removing. Drawing's the best. Isn't it great how confusing it is? The areas that really got like this, all these wrinkles, like, why do I put them in the drawing when I know I'm not going to use them? So just smudge brush, completely destroy them, try to maintain some sort of shape there. Oh, too flat. Get up with this instead. Some mixer brush scattering things a little bit more, letting colors talk to each other and be friends. So you see, if I zoom in way really far here, you can see what I'm doing here. See how it gets a little bit of the dark to go into the light, and then it breaks up the the darks with little flecks of the light. It's like scattering them all around. That's what I want from that brush. Just breaking it, making it all more confused, interesting. It softens as I do that. Soft. Flesh is very soft. If you're going for any kind of a rendered look, you can't go wrong with soft. Put your hard edges on at the end. Just glassing the surface all over. This is why I like to go really extreme with the color variation at the beginning too, because when I glass part of the surface like this, right? If I just beat it up and do all sorts of effects over it, because the color variation was so extreme at the beginning, some still shows through. Very useful. Hey Steven, I have a little worry that I might not be able to become professional unless I leave my full-time job to go part-time, so I have more time to draw. I'm currently able to draw for approximately 4 to 5 hours. Huh. I'm a little worried that I might not be able to become professional unless I have my full-time job to go part-time, so I have more time to draw. I'm currently able to draw for approximately... I wouldn't worry about that. 4 to 5 hours is a good amount of drawing time. These days, I cut myself off at 4 hours a day, usually. I actively try not to do more than 4. I think once you get up over 6, it's like you get diminishing returns really, really quickly. You know, I used to draw like 8 hours a day and stuff like that when I was really trying to make people think that I mattered. But it's not guaranteed that everyone's actually going to get smooth returns on their efforts over that whole time period, you know. All right. Very important step. After all of that, we made it boring. And usually when you make it boring, you feel like, oh, I messed up something with the process. Oh, I don't know how to pick colors. Blah, 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 blah. You look for some reason that things went wrong. And you don't have to worry about that. Just make it fun again. Just add more information. So here we go. Just gonna get a low flow airbrush and add some interesting forms. And my benchmark for that is just, am I tickled? Do I like it? Low opacity, low flow for this because we're working on a surface that is already placed into a value hierarchy, so we don't want to break it with silly moves. I'm also doing this on a multiply layer so that I don't kill the color variations that I'm doing. If I was doing this in a different order, if I was going to do color variation at the end of the painting, I would just do this on a normal layer. I wouldn't have to worry at all about preserving things or not preserving things. But it's basically the same. I would be doing the same thing on this step, just by doing it on a multiply layer. Or if I was doing the lights on a color dodge or a linear dodge, I don't lose the color variation that I slaved over for 40 seconds. Hi Magda, what's up? How are you? The music today is super chill, yes. No New York City Saturday night traffic for you guys. It is totally not aligned with the content of what I'm drawing, but you know, copyrights. Notice I'm changing my brush with some regularity. Totally random. It's just so that I'm putting down different kinds of marks, not just making the same thing over and over again. It has very little to do with any like logic of, oh, I should use this brush here or anything like that. It's just to get variety. Eric Stearns is starting out a fresh sketchbook. I want someone to tell him to stop being a scaredy cat. Go for it, Eric. Come on, if you're going to be afraid of your sketchbook, how are you going to handle the rest of your life? How are you going to handle people's road rage? Stern looks from your partner. Social faux pas. How are you going to get through all that if the blank page of your sketchbook can scare you? Do it for the sake of the rest of your life. Stab at it. Fill it with ink. Fill it with graphite. Do whatever it takes. Just fill it. Let's see, this little form right here, I see it in my mind's eye. It has all these gross shapes, kind of like this. Big, puffy, inflated wrinkles. So I don't need to draw those all this step, but I can try to imply them down here by the Terminator a little bit, by waggling that. And you know what? That demonstration version of it that I did will do just fine, so I'm just gonna leave that. Also feel free to hatch like I'm drawing while I'm doing paintings like these, because I can turn that all into smooth value transitions later, and I can also elaborate on them at later steps, and they will become little wrinkles and stuff like that. Boring. Interest is coming back. Boring. Interest is coming back. I didn't get rid of the lines down here on the lips. That was a absurd end of my career worthy mistake. With this kind of content, wrinkles, monstrous stuff, the trick is knowing where you are at every step of the process, that you don't get lost in the sauce, you know? Here, ever so lightly. Gonna take the heat off of all of this ever so slightly, put it down to like 80%. I usually do that with things like this because my assumption is that I overstate it whenever I do work in the light, because that's the more common mistake. Whatever comes to mind, because remember, what I'm doing right now is that I'm trying to get interest back into the picture, because when I did all of those very processy steps, like blending out the line work and things like that, it just got boring. Makes a lot of sense. Just making it unboring. kinds of wrinkles and transitions that I like, that I prefer in my work. You can prefer different things. Maybe you like to paint things that are, well, I don't know, beautiful. That's totally valid. I don't understand it, but it's up to you. You're the artist. That cheek on the right looks way lighter than the rest of the face on the left, so I'm just gonna tap that, get it down value-wise. It's where it belongs, in subordinate cheek. Yeah, that's better. Gotta be careful not to hit that with too strong a highlight when we do the... I need to go use the restroom. I'll be back in a minute. Alright, I'm back. Wow, Freedom Escapist. With the 5, what is that? Is that, oh god, I'm so stupid. Is that pounds sterling? Is that what the symbol is? Thank you so much, Freedom Escapist. That's incredible. You're the absolute fuel that the art journey runs on. where the vehicle that goes along the path of the art journey is powered by you. Case in point, I think this should be pretty easy to understand. You get distilled down into a glowing golden syrup, and you get poured inside of a ramshackle, rough-hewn car that then goes along some sort of forested path that is the art journey. I think you get that, right? Okay, good. All right. Let us bake these multiplies down back to just a flat painting. Let me aggravate some areas that I found and were bothering me. I have crossed oceans of time to find you. Thank you, Mario. Thank you for finding me. Thank you for finding me in the ocean of time. I would say as far as the time ocean goes, pretty good time in the time ocean. Lovely here. We've got no sugar diet soda and virtual reality. Pretty good time. The ocean of time. Don't like that. Send that to the problem place. Destroy all of that. And all right. Fine. I like the shape of that. It's got to be a better shape to deal with that later. That edge is too hard. Just running the mixer brush over it, softening those edges so that everybody's happy. I think it's copacetic. Another multiply layer. Let's get some darks around the eyes. Again, like I said earlier, the multiply layer is just so that I don't lose the color variation that I put in there at the start. If I didn't do that at the start, I'd just be painting this stuff. Literally, Hoy says, has anyone found an event in their life completely unrelated to drawing made them draw more? Tons of them. All the time. Oh, damn you, I missed these lines. Cool. Back. Doing that right. There we go. And we're just gonna go like that, like this. Yeah. Yep. And round and okay. Under that nose. That's a bit much. But fix it. Phenocephalus says, I can imagine these weird dudes appearing in your adaptation of Hell like little minions. You nailed it. These are all little portraits for demons that live in Pandemonium. It's all for my Pandemonium project. Alright. Now let's do a color dodge. And get the light shape in here. I guess the shadow looks warmer to me, so I'm gonna try to lay this in with a cool. That's it. Red is very annoying when it comes to color, in my experience. So if this doesn't work, usually linear dodge will do a better job. So all I'm doing at first with color dodge is very wide, very soft. I'm picking what I want to come forward, like what I want to be the corner that faces us the most. So I'm tracking a line somewhere. I have to redo my settings. All right, you can see my brush. I'm tracking a line that snakes down this way. And even though it's very low contrast, I'm barely going down. I am drawing with it as I go. Good the whole time. Oh, ABD, always be drawing. I'm looking at my second monitor as I do this, which has my stream feed on it, and I'm doing that because my main monitor is it's a crazy iMac monitor, so it's like super color correct, super wide color gamut, crazy gamma. So most stuff doesn't look like that, and you can wind up doing a lot of work in the really wide color range that a really good monitor offers. And then when you look at what someone on an average monitor is going to see, it's like, oh, half of it is invisible. So I'm just like low-key basing my decisions off of the lowest common denominator and not my like pro-ass equipment. Something to keep in mind if you work on, especially Apple stuff. Like if you work on like an iPad Pro, that has a excellent screen on it. If you do very, very subtle color work on it, most people will not see it unless they are also looking at it on an iPad Pro. And I don't want this to feel like a hot specular necessarily right now. It's really just that overall light effect that pulls the part that's facing us forward, you know? Eric Stern says, do you have a project or a piece you're most proud of? If so, what about it are you proud of? You know, I think it changes all the time. I can rarely, if I like picked what my favorite drawing of mine is, I think it would probably change from day to day. But in all honesty, my favorite drawing is the one that I'm working on right now. That's usually the real answer. I don't, every time I'm doing a picture, I'm like, I want to do it well, you know, and I'm really like believing in the possibilities for that picture. So whatever picture I'm doing, I'm like, this is it, baby. This is the one, you know? It's really hard to turn that part of me off. I want them to be good every time. So if I'm working like even quasi seriously on something on any given day, that's my favorite picture. I always have this feeling that this could be the one. This might be my first great picture, you know? But in terms of drawings, if I just had to pick one now, give me a second. Let me open a binder. Let me just remind myself what I've been doing. Yeah, it's probably my recent big tree piece amongst the trees. That might be my favorite drawing. I like the way it looks in person more than any other drawing. I really like this one. It was a lot of fun and it felt very smooth and in control while I did it. And it felt like it was a reach, so that's fun. You know, it was a good challenge, fun challenge. And yeah, I thought it came out nice. It came out nice, and it looks like and it makes a very nice original, like I said. I would say probably... I think it's really hard to diagnose your own work and to like evaluate it, but probably Fallen is my best picture. I don't know. I would assume this is the best I've pulled off. I'm the kind of artist though that I don't, even though I look at this and I'm like, yeah, that's probably my best one so far, I like doing a new thing every time, right? Like these don't look anything like each other. You know, if you look at the overall compositions, the kinds of ideas that I'm interested between these two, might as well be two different artists who did it, right? Like one is a tight on figure focused work. The other one is like a in full environment with tons of de-emphasized figures where no one is done up to this level, right? Might as well be different artists. But that's just what I like to do. So even though I can acknowledge that this is probably the best I've done, that doesn't make me want to do it again. Like I don't want to run off immediately and do another one of these, you know? Especially for my Paradise Lost project. Like one of the things I want for this series of drawings is that they are all significantly different. Like I don't want them to look like they are iterations on the same fascinations and design ideas. I want them all to be strange on their own and also amongst each other, you know? Victor says, so color dodge lightens the value? Yes. Yes, it does. It does more than that. Theoretically, screen and lighten are the ones that just lighten the value. Color dodge applies a particular value compression ramp as it lightens the values. It squeezes things in a particular way. So that's kind of why I like using it for times like this on flesh, because flesh is very compressed. So it kind of aligns with flesh on its own. Felipe says, what are your favorite art books, art related or not? Or what are your favorite books in general? Paradise Lost is my favorite book. My favorite art books are, well, I mean, if we take like picture books off the table, like just books of the art of my favorite artists, if we remove those, because that would just really be a list of my favorite artists. We're talking like books about art. Harold Speed's The Practice and Science of Drawing is excellent, and it's philosophy. It's really not a technique book. It sort of introduced me to some of the weird frickin' questions that get brought up when you interpret the world visually. That book changed a lot for me, but it's not about technique. He claims it is, and who knows if he maybe thought it was, but as a modern artist, you're not going to learn anything about technique from that book. That book is really about what it means to translate things into visual forms. And then that will apply to your art, you know, that will change the way that you think about it, but it's not really about technique. That's a really great book. James Gurney's books are great. I love a lot of anatomy books. Frank Delaviere's Strength Training Anatomy is essential for anyone who wants to do anatomical work, I would say. It's a great book. So you guys can see, I work really low contrast for a lot of this process. For a lot of the forms that I want to pull out of things, I barely touch them into existence, you know? For most of them, I want to do just enough that I can see it. Like, okay, right there, I can see it, and then I stop. And then if later I decide, you know, I want to see it more, that's easy to do. But if you overdo it and you go high contrast early, that blows the contrast hierarchy for the whole rest of the picture. And that is such a pain in the ass to rebuild. You have to do so much editing. You have to repaint so much stuff. You have to stitch things back together. You have to mess with curves like crazy. It is very difficult to work backwards in that direction. But to add contrast is, well, super easy. It is accidental, so... you need a reminder of how low contrast I'm working, here is real white. The whole thing is pretty damn dark when you see that, right? Things are barely changing as I go over the form. Evolved being, how are you? Good to see you. Thank you for the kind words. Thank you for the kind words. Carter Bancroft says, do you feel like coming up with somewhat original ideas for what to draw gets easier the more one does it? I think it gets harder because you've been seeing more pictures your whole life. You know, you're overexposed and overstimulated. I think just on a... I think for that particular point, ignorance is bliss a lot of the time. You know, I have seen so many millions of images in my years and really, really analyzed and thought about and been friends with hundreds of thousands, you know? It's like, all that stuff is in there. But I'm not convinced it's possible to do anything original, you know? It really is. It seems basically certain to me that everything is a remix, you know? You're just pulling stuff from, even if you think you're being super original, you're being influenced by such a deep variety and plethora of things that you can't even identify it. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. Just try not to steal. Try not to steal. Alright, so I'm starting to paint forms there with the light instead of just getting that roll. So I'm gonna stop that. Let me just hit this. Just get some big modulations on that gross ear that's going on there. And now I will, like I said, I'm always, usually when I do this, I'll bring it down to like 80 or something like that. Assume that I went too far. Save me a little bit of contrast. So I'm gonna drop this to like 75. And I will bake that. And I'll merge it down. Now I will do another color dodge. Yeah, I'll get something speckly for this one. And now I'll start dropping in what will be my noticeable speculars. And this, you want to be very careful about this because this in particular, if you go strong with this, a general viewer, this might be the only thing they see. They'll be like, wow, the highlights. So if you're going to start dropping in hot stuff like this, let me show you. If you're gonna start dropping in hot stuff like this all over the place, you better make sure that the shapes are awesome, right? They don't need to be right, they don't need to be perfect, they just need to be cool. They need to be thought out and careful. Back down to low flow. Back down to low opacity. Hold on. Everyone give me a second. I gotta turn on a light. Very dark in my room now. Need a little bit more light behind my monitor so it doesn't hurt my eyes so much. Alright. So back on low flow, low opacity. Starting to drop the specular shapes in. No rules here. You can work big, you can work small. Just draw while you do it. Don't get stuck on the step of the process that you're in. Don't think, oh, I'm just applying speculars now and here they go. No, 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 no. Forget that. Forget that you're doing that. Just draw. Make shapes. Add information. Any step that you do where you stop adding information when you're rendering, that's where it dies. That's where it falls apart. With every step, with softening the shadows, with adding shadow shapes, with adding speculars, just add info. Tell the viewer more about the form. Now, you need to do it with wisdom, depending on the look that you're going for. You need to know how you're going to control your contrast hierarchy to get the effect that you want. But you always want to be adding info. That's the difference between being able to make a picture better and better and better, no matter how long you work on it, and the very common problem of, oh, the more I work on it, the worse it gets. I should have stopped an hour ago. That's how you avoid that. Wrist is starting to hurt a little. I've been having a little bit of wrist pain lately. I really don't usually get that. I don't know what's triggering it. Don't worry. If it starts to hurt for real or it's not getting better for a long time, don't you worry. I'm quitting. I will never draw again. I will take my own advice. You won't hear from me for weeks. The music makes it kind of like romantic to look at this demon, I think. I look for areas for the specular to get very tight and then for it to bloom out a little bit and get soft. But still, it's like, see how this spot right here is kind of tighter? And then this spot over here gets more diffuse? That's the kind of variety that you want for flesh. I don't like that shadow. I need to repaint that. I need to do something to it. It deserves more. Any kind of texture brushes will do here. Just looking for stuff that will leave dots so that it feels a little bit more like skin. Doesn't matter what you use. Anything dotty. How you doing, Didi? Did you get all your footage? card reader. This is it. So you put that into your computer. Cards go in there. We were shooting on 1, so open up the side of the camera, look for the slot that says 1, push it in, and then that'll pop the card out. Can you just put it a little lower? I turned it off a while ago. Put the temperature up a bit. Stretches and puppy hugs to prevent the pain. Yeah, I got myself a little wrist rest. I was hoping that would get rid of it, but lingering a bit. Steven, your content is so refreshing. You're such a blessing. Please keep sharing your thoughts about art with us. It helps tremendously. Hope to take your course someday. Oh, well, I hope you take it too. I will keep sharing my thoughts, for sure. I love talking about art. Yeah, the problem would be shutting me up. That would be the problem. I'm stretching my hand right now. Felipe says, I find that drawing in digital is tougher on your wrist compared to drawing traditionally. Yeah, I would generally agree. Might just be because I've been doing more tablet stuff lately. I spend way more time drawing on paper or drawing on my iPad. You want to see my sculpting one day? Well, I'm sure I can. When the design process series that I'm putting together for Pandemonium, I think it's inevitable that there's going to be some ZBrush sculpting in there, so you will get your wish, I expect. I just have to remember to run the camera when I'm doing that. Because I do reference maquettes for big projects in ZBrush, so. Looking for flex, looking for that fleshy feeling. I'm gonna go in there and beat all of that up with my mixer brush as well at some point, and that'll make it smooth and hacky. Bad artwork, not Sargent, so it's bad. And it's that simple. Thank you. Please come again and exit through the gift shop. Steven, when is Transformational Anatomy of the Torso coming out? I'm going to be honest. I do not know because I'm working on a Principles of Design series first. And that needs my full attention for a while. After that, I really love Transformational Anatomy. I definitely want to finish it. It's just a very niche product. There's not a lot of people buy it. Not a lot of people think they need that. It's for me and 50 other people. So I am going to finish it though, because I really want it out there, because for the people who do the kind of thing that I do, that's really it, you know? It's like Transformational Anatomy is really the tutorial that shows you how to draw like me the most, you know? It's not like Secrets of Shading that does that. All of my thoughts on like how to transition form and how to design proportions and how to handle anatomical changes as proportions change. That's really like what my particular look is about. You know, the shading stuff is like anyone who's shading nicely is doing that stuff. The stuff that's really like just me is what's in transformational anatomy. So it's very important to me. You're even more excited for Principles of Design? Good. I'm glad. I'm excited for it too. That's been my white whale for years. Give me a year. It's gonna be crazy. That's the like super important thing that nobody online teaches, that I think would be best taught with videos online. I've wanted to do it for a long time. It's gonna be a weird one. It's gonna get philosophical fast. Yeah, I'm just drawing all the speculars with this speckly thinger. Is it the most glamorous, most fast, most exciting way to work? No, but I'm really a work hard, not work smart kind of a guy. Occasionally changing my hue to just get more variation. Remember, looking for diffuse, sharp, back to diffuse again. The variety between diffuse areas and sharper areas is really what keeps it from looking boring. Yeah. As they say in so many languages, ojo, pilas, pay attention. Focus the whole time. Be doing the whole thing. Be doing the thing. By the way, if anyone in here has emailed me recently and has not gotten a response from me, I am so sorry. My life has just been crazy, and my open emails just from people on the internet, the stack has gotten very tall. But I do like answering my emails. Everyone that comes in, I put it in my to-do tasks in my email. I do plan on getting back to you. And I know for a lot of you, it's been like 3 months since you emailed me. Rest assured, I read your email. I just haven't been able to write a response yet. I've been extremely busy. You know, I used to be able to, if I stayed on top of it, pretty quickly respond to everyone who sent me a message, but for better or for worse, I think those days are over. So just, if you in here are someone who has recently sent me an email, you've not gotten a response from me, I apologize. I do not mean to do that to you. I like answering everybody, right? Want to bulge that out a little bit more. Need to do that in a repair step after this. I can't fix it while I'm applying all my little highlights here. All right, so let's do some fall off. Let's say that that's like a pass of specular reflections. Giving us some nice variety and variation all around here. Some texture. We use them to add forms, which is always something you want to do. You want to feel free to add things with every step. So there they are, off. There they are, on. So let's do what we usually do. Let's just step off it ever so slightly. So I'm going to take it down to like 70. I don't want to lose the crispness of the shape. So 75. So there it is. Now it's just not quite so hot. And what was the other thing I was gonna do? All right, I'm gonna put a little fall off on this because I don't want the ones at the top to be as intense as the ones at the bottom on these small forms. So I'm just masking that layer, painting with black. I'm just gonna hurt them a little bit. Take the airbrush, tap with the airbrush. That way they're still there. But they're more intense up top. And it lets those forms at the bottom, instead of leaping forwards towards us and flattening out, they hopefully roll away a little bit more as they get dark. It's a subtle thing, but we are subtle people, we artists. All right, so bake that to normal. Merge it down. Knitted. Get my glasser. Which, when I say my glasser, I just mean any speckly brush set to the mixer brush. Just gonna beat up some contrasty areas right around here. feel inappropriate with the level of development. Feel like a bulldozer or something. Don't feel like a bulldozer, Magda. I think you're very subtle. The powers that E. Stopping by from work to say hello. Hello. All right. What do you say we actually paint? Chaos going on these brows. Just using the hard round, squished completely down with its edges softened so that it leaves hard edge and a soft edge on every stroke. Got the old mixer brush set on sample all layers. Use that to beat up edges. Oh yes. The more aggressive you are with it, better it tends to look. Now we're talking. Now we're talking. Oh yeah. Let's catch some flyaways on this baby. Oh yes. Just trying to be patient. You know, I'm turning my brush when it's appropriate for the direction the hairs need to go, instead of like not doing that. This right here, this is the reason not to paint pretty girls. Don't do it if you're not having fun, people. Don't do it if you're not having fun. Like I said, now I'm painting. Everything else was the necessary prep, the real work. But that real work doesn't look a lot like what people think of when they think of painting. People think of painting, they're like, what did it? Nope. Not gonna make anything look like anything. Unless you're like Greg Mullins. But are you Greg Mullins? You know if you're Craig Mullins, you have to tell me, right? You know, when you zoom in, it looks nice and low contrast, and like, you know, if you look at a little spot like that, feels like you did a whole shit ton of work or went in there and really painted it out all crazy, or it's got like photographic edges and stuff like that. And it's like, you didn't. It's all just artifacts of careful prep. Alright. Everybody seems to like painting eyes and like putting them in their proper place where they have all of the detail in the image. I don't. I like doing everything else. I like rendering like cheeks. That's where I have fun. I have so much room on the value scale left too. Again, look, here's white. You know, I have a lot of room to add highlights and add form if I wanted to. I'm not gonna push it that far. That ain't my thing, but I could. And that leaves a lot of room for the adjustment layers too. If you want to do curves and stuff like that. Is there any door to beat Craig Mullins? If only. You gotta be careful with the stuff that I'm doing now. It's like if you don't vary your colors, if you do this stuff without a nice variegated base, this stuff starts falling flat really fast. Starts killing the picture. That's why I like to work into really wild, colorful bases. It helps me when I do this stuff that threatens to kill the picture. Also try to vary. You see I'm always like tapping the color picker around here, just like trying to make it a little, literally just random, just so that it's somewhat different. All the little strokes I put down, like it's a little more red, a little brighter, a little bit more orange. Just looking for variation. Just faking it, you know? That's what you gotta do when you don't have reference, when you're just making it up. This is a real joy. I mean, you could do this all day easy. Well, you could push a painting forever, right? As long as you're controlling the contrast, as long as you're always leaving yourself room. Gotta be patient though. I mean, how long have I been doing this? Yikes, 2.5 hours. You know? And I've really only started painting just now. Everything else has been careful prep. And the drawing I did in like 15 seconds. The drawing is just... Where'd the drawing go? Don't forget that that was the drawing, right? So, you know, if I had done like a real drawing, if I was really trying to, you know, nail it down and make it great at the drawing step before I started painting, you'd be spending way more time, right? So you need to be very patient. And if you don't like how this is coming out, that's a sign that you need to be even more patient, right? Because I've been doing this a long time, and I don't really feel super confused while I do stuff like this. And it's taken me this long, so if you don't like the way this looks and you're gonna do another kind of process or a similar process, you're like, and you haven't been doing it as long as me, well, expect to spend longer to get better results. You know, you gotta be realistic. And you do. Now I'm thinking in shapes, right? It looks like I might be drawing wrinkles and stuff here. I'm not. I'm thinking of this shape that I want to put down. I'm just, instead of doing it in one big brush stroke like that, I'm doing it like I'm hatching with a pencil because I know it will reinforce the feeling of wrinkles. But in my head, I'm not quote unquote drawing wrinkles, you know? I basically never will, right? I'll do stuff like this, like these flows here, but those are forms, you know? Those aren't really wrinkles in the traditional sense. Breaking things up. I'm gonna make things look interesting. If those hatches get too intense, I'll just hit them with the mixer brush a little bit. I like to leave them in the middle and then soften them out at the edges. Now, like I said, now I'm painting, right? I'm just on a normal layer, normal brush mode now. But all this stuff would look really bad if there wasn't all of my careful form thinking underneath. Also, I'm trying not to think of anything that I'm putting down right now as flat shapes. Even though they're very small, I'm still just thinking of these as forms. They just happen to be forms that are much smaller than the rest of the forms, but they're still forms. I don't know why my color picker keeps getting stuck. See how I'm inventing forms, even though I've already done so much work? Like I said, at every single step, tell the viewer new things. That's what makes it so that it's actually getting better instead of getting worse and not becoming boring. Never feel locked in. Is this the most fun way to spend a Saturday night? Or just painting creepy goblins, my dude. I fucking love drawing. Little, oh, those nose forms, yes. Okay. See, the little, ooh, I like it. It's a little hot though. Just gonna, just knock it back Ooh, just a little bit, you know? Keep it fleshy. Keep it fleshy now. The trick to this stuff is not a process. The trick is to be able to dream the forms into what you're painting, you know? That's the trick. You can know the process as much as you want, but if you're just thinking about the process while you do this, it's not gonna, that ain't it. Your focus needs to be on the forms. And making the forms fun and interesting. Remember, thin, thin, thin in some areas, and then diffuse, let it widen out. Gotta stretch my hand for a second. Steven, how do you approach a job in which you have to finish a piece in a time frame that you're not comfortable with? Like having to be fast but without rushing, if that makes any sense. Thank you. It depends on the job. I mean, a lot of jobs, the ability to push the deadline is built in, right? The project managers, it's part of their job to manage expectations and have a little bit of wiggle room, you know, they have padding. So if you really find yourself in a bind, the best thing you can do is like not fake it, you know, just if you have any kind of relationship with your project manager, just send them an email like, hey, I don't know what's going to happen. I might get it done on time, but I'll be honest, I'm a little worried right now. Can you help me, right? Do you have any wiggle room? Can you help me push this deadline or anything like that? That's the most human thing you can do. But beyond that, you know, to a certain extent, you might need to just get quicker. You know, there's a point where we all need to get quicker. You don't need to force that. Like time will do it. But it's like the problem is usually like you could have said different stuff up front. You know, maybe you predicted wrong for how long it was going to take to do the thing that they wanted you to do. Maybe you let them push you a little bit too much, or you didn't explain the differences between different kinds of things that you deliver. Like, I feel a lot of the time, the source of that problem is in like communication, something early up front. You also just, you know, just get it as close as you can, and when the deadline hits, slap it on the table, man, and see what happens. You know, a lot of the times it's not up to you. A lot of the times it's just, you know, you think it's horrible and it's not ready, but when another person whose job it is to put this in an email and send it to the boss, when they see it, they're just like, great, cool, get out of here. We're done here. Like, it's not all about you and how you feel, you know, just try to reserve judgment. You know, it might look fine. I don't have much experience with this. I don't think I've ever actually missed a deadline. I'm trying to think. but that's not because I'm fast. Like, I'm really, my MO always with deadlines has always been to under-promise and over-deliver. Like, I tell people crazy things. I'm like, nope, that's gonna take 5 days. No, trust me, you're thinking about it all wrong. That's gonna take 5 days. And like, I'll have that conversation and be like, really? Geez, okay, all right. Well, I guess we could do 5 days, and then I do it in 2. And then they're like, what? And I'm like, go figure, you know, I just had a couple good days. That's the better situation to be in a lot of the time. Yeah, when I get worried on a job, I just tell people, you know? I just complain. I'm like, you want me to what? And how much? What? No! Are you crazy? And then I get it done in that time frame. I'm just like, there it is. Da-da-da. The texture of the crazy color variation there is keeping this area from blending with the eyes. I'm just gonna mixer brush it all a little bit. Oh, you know what's good sometimes to do at this stage is readdress the shadows a little bit too. Because now that I'm sort of following some of the forms with these almost wrinkly looking lines, but I'm still thinking about big shapes, sometimes the shadows can help us here. So let's just make a multiply real quick. I'm just gonna like go around the forms. I'll do it with this really strong color. I'm just gonna go around a lot of these forms like this. Like I'll go across like that, as if I'm touching the surface. And I'll do that like that on the big versions. And then on also like stuff like these brows, I'm gonna go like that, following along them. So it's like I'm faking cross contour lines onto it. Just very, very subtle. These would be like the lightest of light halftones. This is another step that can ruin the picture, but nothing wagered, nothing gained. When it works, they interact nicely with those painting lines that I'm putting in. The janitor. Love your art, love your videos. Want to say thanks? Well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you, janitor. I'm gonna drop the, doing this on very low opacity, very low flow. And like everything, we will lower the opacity on this layer when the deed is done. Make it even more subtle and to give us more room to keep going. That's the thing. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I like the feeling that I can keep going on a picture. That makes me happy. The idea that like it's supposed to be done at this step, like I blew the contrast range and now I really should have found a way to have it be refined and done, like that just makes me not want to make pictures. I love the feeling that it's like, oh yeah, we could redo that. We could do second pass on that, third pass, fourth pass. Make things rounder, go slower, spend more days on it. Drink more coffee while we do it. I love that feeling. I like how this shadow is tight down here, and then it's very diffuse up there. This pleases us. See how that makes it look like some real goddamn skin sometimes? That's pretty freaky, right? Like I said, it doesn't always work, but when it interacts nicely with those light strokes, it can give you a very skin-like feeling. You know, one of the finer pleasures in life, doing some crap like that. Oh, Kyle T. Webster. Always a joy to watch you draw and paint, Steven. Thank you, Kyle. Love your brushes, man. Thank you for the work that you do for our industry. I use your concept art brushes pack for rocks and trees and stuff for gigs all the time. So again, you can see, let me show it as I go down it here. I'm doing lines like this. As if I was following the direction of some of those, like the direction the wrinkles would be going, right? But it's not super detailed or anything like that. Just getting a hard edge and a soft edge out of it. It's going down super subtle, and then it's interacting with those striations that are already there. See how just a little bit of that really gives you some of that, like, ooh, like spooky feeling, like crisscrossing Langerline skin feeling. You can get really on the form when you do this stuff. Like when I'm doing something like this, like right now, it really, there's moments when I'm doing this where it really feels like I'm like sculpting something in ZBrush. Like it's just like the lightest touches feel like I'm really, yeah, I don't know how to say it. It really just feels like I know I'm like connected with how the skin is folding and moving. It's a little psychedelic. It's a good thing to go for, being on the form. Good feeling. By the way, I should mention, this would take much longer if it was really high res. It being reasonably low res makes a lot of this stuff blend together nicer. Makes it go a little bit quicker. You know, we're used to the softness of flesh, so whereas it would hurt you if you were like painting a car or something like that, kind of helps you when you're doing flesh. You guys should know, I'm just in my happy place right now. Like I said, painting a cheek, there's nowhere I'd rather be. Except maybe Rome. Rome would be a good alternative. Thanks for being here, people. Always makes it easier to buckle down on something like this that's just for fun, when you're like talking through it and chatting with people about it. So don't forget, like, this is a lot of fun, but you guys saw me for the past 2.5 hours earning these details by designing the form, right? It's all about designing the form. This pass wouldn't do a damn thing if the form wasn't already there underneath it. So long, plastic shorts. And of course, if you need inspiration for like what kinds of little forms and wrinkles to make on a step like this, just at pictures of people. You can really do whatever you want. Somewhere out there, someone has the impossible face that you drew, you know? You need a reminder of that. The Earth's World Instagram account will show you that, don't worry. Whatever you sketched and came up with, there's a real person who looks crazier than that. Freaking love painting, man. Love making form. Your drawing chops with cross-hatching really come in handy here. Just doing the classic cross-hatching X's to lead the eye around the form. I just love it. I just love making stuff look like skin. So freaking fun. So, maybe a patch like this is, you know, there's something to think about here, which is that if you just do this everywhere, it won't look quite right. Something's gonna go wrong. It'll trigger some weird effect in the viewer's eye. So you've got to look for certain areas where you're gonna do a different texture, really show the variety of skin types that are on a face. So maybe on this nose, I would do it more dotty, make really noticeably bigger pores instead of striations. You know, it'd be a little weird if there was like, just look at your nose in the mirror, right? There's not these kinds of striations on your nose. Maybe if you get down there really down tight, but instead what you notice on a nose is that it's like pockmarked, that there's bigger dots. So you'd want to respect that on another part of the face. You just don't want to, it's easy when you're doing details and designing forms to fall in love with the last thing that went right, and then you just put it absolutely everywhere, and that usually hurts it. It's like you got excited by it and you really liked it in that spot because it looked special in that spot. That was some part of the reason that it excited you. So you need to respect that and you need to switch it up somewhere else on the form. These to turn a little tighter into the eye. Cool. It's fun being a crazy person. You know, it's like, because a lot of people will say like, oh, no, I'd never paint the wrinkles on the skin. Like, you're really going to go down that far? It's like, well, they're not wrinkles. They're forms. They help explain the form, right? And, I mean, I really only did that for like 10 minutes, right? It really wasn't that long. It was something like, I don't know, it might have been a half hour. Like I said, it felt like I was sculpting a ZBrush model while I did that, so I got pretty lost. But it wasn't as... Someone who's going to resist doing a step like that probably thinks that takes all day, right? But it doesn't. That stuff is actually totally reasonable to do if you actually set up for it. Also, by the way, this is the kind of stuff, I mean, I've been working from imagination the whole time, right? This is obviously just some silly goblin, right? But this kind of stuff, this is the stuff you want to do from imagination. Like, you're going to drive yourself crazy trying to copy this stuff from a photo. And this scale of thing is really not super useful to get from a photo. I personally think it's more useful for this kind of thing to sink into it and to look at nothing but your drawing and just be with it and be its best friend. Be like, what do you want? What do you want to do? Oh, that's cool. No, yeah, that's really sick. Oh, if the line goes right there, yeah, I love that. I love that. Just do that. I think for this scale of stuff, if you try copying it from photos or looking at a photo while you do it, it really you just wind up copying incidental things instead of continuing to create form while you do these details, which, as I've said, that's what it's all about. All right, so let's leave these shadow Langer lines behind. If you remember, if you were here, it occurred to me that I should do these while I was working on some of the light shapes, actually. So let's not forget that that's what we were doing. And let's go back to those, and I will show you why I wanted to drop these in before I kept going with those. Probably already clear to some of you. Let's get off this particular brush. Get back our squeeze down soft round. So there we have our little fold pass that really does a lot to make things have a little bit more verisimilitude and have more form, right? But that pass that's underneath it, where we have some of the light shapes and stuff rolling through with speculars and all that, if I do this now, Now what I get to do as I paint these light hatches that I was doing, now what I get to do is that just incidentally, not slavishly, nothing like that, every now and then, when I hit some of these little wrinkles that I painted, I can just react to them and get the freaking light that gets caught when the wrinkle pops back out, right? So yeah, I'm that kind of a crazy person, but it's like I said, it's not slavish. It's just paint like normal, right? And feel free to blow it out because they can get very netty as you go on it. But just every now and then, as you're moving your hand over it, just follow some of those lines, happy little wrinkles. And then, you know, all your friends will think you've gone off the deep end now, you know? So it's fun. That's why I stopped when I had started putting those down, and I was like, oh, you know what I should put in those shadow linger lines so that I could actually react to them as I go through and paint. I wouldn't mind watching you paint skin all day. I can paint skin all day, so that's on the table. That is for sure. These past 3 hours and 10 minutes have zipped right by. Community meditation for sure. I gotta stretch my hand for a second. Hello, hi. Steven, who do you think are the most influential artists of our time? Or what artists do you like that are pushing art to its limits or doing something different? Oh man. I don't know. I mean, hopefully I don't sound mean when I say this, right? Like, if you've listened to the channel, you know I think making art is like the best thing. Like, it's so healthy for you and for how you manifest in the world and how you interact with others, and it's a beautiful thing to add. So keep that in mind when I say I don't think artists are very influential. You know, like business people, entrepreneurs, Silicon Valley type politicians, like those are the influential people in our society. And I think that the influence that, let's say, draftsmen and painters used to have, I would say that went to film for all intents and purposes in our era. So yeah, I just don't, in the big picture, I don't think art is super influential anymore. But I also don't think that matters, because art is really, it's super personal. You know, it's very important that if you're the kind of person who feels the urge to do it, that you do it. So I don't think that's a big deal. And I know that you meant like in our industry and all of that, but I think that our mentalities get so twisted within our industry, you know, with jealousy and people sort of beating up on themselves about their art and all that, that I do feel it's very important to at every turn remind people, like, it's not a big deal. Like, this whole like illustration and commercial art thing is really not a big deal that you need to worry about, and that you need to worry about what you mean in it or anything like that. It's perfectly fine to be more lighthearted about it. So I just want to get that across. But in our field, in our little world, artists who are pushing it, well, it's hard. It's so hard to separate that from taste. You know, I really think it's so hard to separate that from taste. For skills, you know, Craig Mullins still does it for me. It freaks me out that he was like the first person using Photoshop, and he like did everything with it. You know, he did impressionist paintings, he did photoreal paintings, he did traditional looking paintings that looked exactly like what traditional paintings look like. Then he did paintings that are like only digital paintings can look like this. Like, it's like before we all even knew what the hell was going on, Craig had tried everything and done it well. You know, that freaks me out a little bit. So I still consider him hugely influential. I think you could just sort of look through his library and see a plethora of really, in my opinion, out there ideas done super well for how you can construct a picture and what's possible with digital work. You know, for traditional, I love Miles Johnston. You know, I think Miles is putting out work that's definitely like of a type, but he's so sincere about what he's doing, and he's open about his emotionality being involved with it. I really, really respect him for that. Obviously, I love his work, and as another person who loves to draw with pencils, I super respect his skill with a pencil. It's just like the sincerity of what he does really gets me every time, you know? There's a lot of artists that I respect and think are pushing it not necessarily for their art, but for their like business acumen, you know, like how they're putting themselves out there and the trails that they're blazing for the spot that artists hold in the world, you know? So, you know, I think Ross Tran is definitely probably the most monumental there. Like he really like, you know, you didn't know artists could do this, huh? Like this is a thing, you know? Yeah, obviously building upon the types of Bob Ross, like the types like Bob Ross and all that, but I think you get what I'm saying. Yeah, it's a pretty vast question. Sorry that was rambling there a little bit. I don't really have a super good answer for you, but it's a pretty vast question. I think it's nuanced. If you were trying to ask me who's just the crazy best at drawing, it's Claire Wendling. Nobody alive draws better than Claire Wendling. If that's what you were getting at. Just an eye and like 15 touches, you know? Just looking at it small for a minute. Oh, I forgot to. Like I said, those layers that are like particular effects, I always step on those a bit. So let's put that down. I don't want it to read. I want them to read here, those wrinkle lines, but when I'm way back here and it's this small, I don't want them to read. So I need to find the sweet spot. Like there, they might as well not be there. They're pretty subdued there. Let's see if they're still there when I zoom in. They're a little light when I zoom in. Let's take that up to like 70. Yeah, sure. It'll all get blown out as I paint the light anyway. It's gonna wind up. Now for these steps, I'm just, in my head, I'm just imagining every old person I've ever had a conversation with. Just put in the little marks in. Happy little marks. And remember, they're forms. I'm not just following them graphically. You know, I'm letting them become shape, go across the skin, become other things. When they do that, I'll respect them. I'll be like, wow, daring. All right, let's put a little shadow on you. Let's integrate you into the environment. I just want to emphasize again, I don't find working like this like time consuming or like tiring. It's just, I'm just continuing to develop the form. You know, it just so happens I'm doing it with thin lines at this step. It's not exhausting at all. All right, like I said, let's put some pock marks in this area so that we're not doing the same skin texture everywhere. Start with a brush, and then because we're at such a level of exactingness at this point, just gonna do it by hand. It really doesn't take that much time, because you only do it in key areas, right? You only do it like right near the high contrast spot, and then you let it fade out. So it makes a big difference, but am I actually spending even an hour doing this? No, it's more like 1 minute. And it makes a big difference. I mean, don't get me wrong. It makes no difference, because this stuff just goes on Instagram where it's going to be 1.5 inches wide. But it makes a difference to me. To me, this just feels more like what a nose is. It doesn't have those striations. It has pock marks. It has dots. And that contributes, you know? To me, it makes the form read better. All right, this kind of work is not exhausting to me, but hunger is a different story. I believe everyone that it is dinner time for me. So there's progress on that. Maybe I will try to wrap it on another stream later, but what would I do to finish this? So I would just clean up these edges. You know, anything that here, anything like that. I would do that ear. In terms of adjustments and things like that, I'd probably put a final color dodge on this and just reinforce whatever holographic shape I want the highlight to make. So whatever it is, like if I design the hottest part of the specular to be like that shape, and then it snakes this way, and then it swoops this way, and then it zigzags this way, then it comes down here, then it zigzags here, and then it comes down here and it hits there. Like whatever you want to do, right? Whatever I would design for the arabesque that is the connected version of the specular, I would do one last layer where I sort of design that shape very clearly, you know, paint it carefully. And so if I just take my example here and lock it, do it quite subtle, it'd be something like that, and just lower the opacity on that a bit. And you see that that gives it a lot of like oomph on the clear, like really makes it feel much more structural, that highlight system. So I would just do that. Probably leave the light alone after that. You could go really crazy rendering the light, but it's like for every bit that you do, you're gonna like need to do a lot more balancing. There's a few more shadows here that I could crisp up, like stuff like that I would do, but Then after I do that, the very final thing that I would do is I'd put something into the shadows. So I'd either like go in there and make sure that the dark accents are like truly dark. Like I'd give that a little bit of juice. Give that a little bit of juice. Follow the core shadow a bit. This is all on a multiply. Follow the core shadows here. And then after I'd reclaim those core shadows a little bit, I would maybe take maybe a linear dodge, and I would just get a little reflected light into those. Super subtle. Always painting, you know, moving my pen with the forms as I do that. Try not to overdo it. And you can color that too if you want. So there it's just like a generalized little bit of fill so that it doesn't get so dark. But you can make that like colored like that. Go for a contrasting color like green or anything like that. You could do whatever you want with that. But I would do some little bit of fill there, whatever it is. And then yeah, then the last thing would just be doing levels to just give it, because I paint really low contrast to control the form, I just give it a little juice like that. Well, this is you could do it with curves to be even more control, but just find the exact amount of contrast that I want with either curves or levels. I don't know. Actually, the form is solid enough that this one doesn't necessarily make it better that it gets juiced that hot. I would maybe just leave this one the way that it is. You need less levels the longer you work on something, I find, usually. So maybe I'd leave color correction, stuff like that. That's what I'd do on a silly thing like that. And then the final step would be me looking at it and saying to myself, God, it would be so much better if I'd been way more thoughtful at the beginning. That would be the final step. And then rinse, dry, repeat. Do a better start on the next one. All right, so I'm gonna hop off of here, go get some food. Thanks for hanging out, everybody. Oh, Tim Tran, what's up? Tim from your upcoming workshop, just saw your stream, I want to say hi. Hello, Tim. Good to talk to you. Good points, maybe it's not some Oh, I don't know. Oh, you're not talking to me, Magda, I see. Those highlights and core shadows did a ton to sell that form. Yep. Just the final, like, solidifying pass, because you always make things muddier, a little softer as you render. So that very last thing I would do is just emphasize the calligraphy of those overall things, the snaking ribbon of the core shadow and the snaking ribbon of the specular. That would be the last stuff I do. And you saw even goosing it, like really improvised, like it makes a big difference, right? Just winging it completely, it does a lot. Oh, I'm glad you had fun drawing along. All right, everybody, that was a blast. That was a lot of fun to do. Yep. That stuff on the left is Sergei Kritsky's layer factory. You can find it on Gumroad. Great tool. I only use it a little bit for stuff like this, but I use it a lot for work. It has a lot of super useful functions. Just a little question before you go. What should I do if I discover that a painting that I did a month ago is better than any I do now? Don't worry about it. Just keep going. Just keep going. Art has ups and downs. Things go up and down all the time. Things are always going up and down. All right, everybody. Take care. Enjoy your drawing. Talk to you soon.